Okay, so we now have this next given. Let's express this into a single function. We have cosecant squared x minus 1 times sine squared x. So, of course, before we do everything here, let's just analyze our given. We notice that there are squared in our given, squared. So therefore, there's also this minus 1, the presence of 1. So this is very much sure, this is very sure that we will be using one of the Pythagorean identities. So looking at our given, we have here the cosine squared x minus 1. And we also have these three Pythagorean identities, the 1, the 2, and the 3. Which of the three Pythagorean identities do you think is very much applicable for our first given? Is it 1, 2, or 3? Type it in the chat box. Where can you find cosecant and 1 in our Pythagorean identities? Is it 1, 2, or 3? That's correct, sir, in number 3 po. However, looking at our identity and our given, they are somewhat not the same. Because in our Pythagorean identities, we have 1 plus cotangent squared x is equal to cosecant squared x. However, what we need here is cosecant squared x minus 1. And in here, cosecant squared x is just alone. But 1 is on the other side. Now, treat it like you are solving an equation. When you transpose 1 to the other side, it becomes minus 1. So therefore, you will end up with cotangent squared x is also the same as cosecant squared x minus 1. Therefore, we can make use of this newly formed identity for this equation. For this expression. Okay? So therefore, looking at this, cosecant squared x minus 1. And also, we have here cosecant squared x minus 1 on this side. Here, we can simply say that they are just the same with cotangent squared x. So let me change this with cotangent squared x. Okay? Palitan na natin to. So this will become cotangent squared x. Ayan. Times sine squared x. Okay. Now, what else do you think shall we do? We have here cotangent and we have here sine. And we just want to make it a single function. What other identities do you think can we do now? So okay na si Pythagorean. What else? Quotient identity po ng cotangent squared x. Very good. That's correct. So let's use this, the cotangent here. However, this time let's put squared here, squared there, and squared in the sign. Okay, kasi it is expressed in squared. Therefore, let's do this. This will become, by using our quotient identity, we have cosine squared x over sine squared x. That's it. Times this one, we will just copy. So we have here sine squared x over 1. Okay. Now, n to n, d to d. What else do you think can be done here? What else? What's the next step? The next step. Sir, saan po galing yung cotangent? Saan po galing yung cotangent? Ayun, dito. Here, in this process. Let's repeat that. Okay, para hindi mawala yung classmate natin. Saan po galing yung cotangent x? Let's do this again. Let me repeat the process. Okay, so let's forget about that muna. Tanong kasi may tanong, sir, saan po galing? Saan po galing itong cotangent squared x na to? Okay, so it's Pythagorean. Galing siya actually dito. Here in this equation or in this identity. So we have 1 plus cotangent squared theta, or x na lang. X is equal to cosecant squared x. So, however, in our given, it is cosecant squared x minus 1. Ang cosecant squared x natin dito, wala siyang minus 1. So, the best thing to do here, it's an equation. Let's transpose 1 to the other side. So, this will become cotangent squared x is equal to cosecant squared x. Yung tinranspose mo, minus 1. Ayun. So therefore, kapareho na ngayon si cosecant squared x at saka yung given mo na cosecant squared x. Ayun. So from there, we can now change that to cotangent squared x. Is that clear? Lumiwanag na ba yon? Saan galing yung cotangent squared x? Okay, good. Now let's continue. Now, after that, of course, let's go now. We just noticed na cotangent and sine may relasyon. Kasi when we do the quotient identity for cotangent, we will end up with cosine x over sine x. However, dahil squared siya, the identity will also be squared. So we now have cosine squared x over sine squared x. Can you follow? And then bring down lang natin si sine squared x. Now, to simplify, let's cancel what's the same in the numerator and in the denominator. So we have here sine, sine. So therefore, what's left here is cosine squared x over 1. And it's just the same with cosine squared x. And that's the single function for that. Okay? Show a reaction if you understood that process. Sir, more examples pa po? Yes, don't worry. We'll have more. Okay na? Do you have other question or concern? Oh, one more. Let's try this. Let's try these activities. Ready? Okay, ready na? Let's have another. Ready. Let's do this. Express to single function, huh? So we have sine x cotangent x. Let me insert our identities here. Game. Sige nga. What's the first thing to do here? More examples as requested. What's the best thing to do here? Sine and cotangent, may relasyon. What will we do? Type it in the chat box, please. Quotient identity po ng cotangent. Very good. What about the rest? Did you also notice that? Tandaan ha, lagi niyong tandaan. Pag may sine at cosine kayo, tas merong tangent or cotangent, laging may relasyon yun. Quotient identities, laging magagamit doon. Remember that. Okay? Now, let's change this. So we have ito. Let's rewrite this with this. Can you follow? So this will become cosine x over sine x. Okay. Times, of course, dahil si sine, wala naman siyang nangyari. Let's just copy it. Let's copy it. So this will become sine x lang. Sine x over 1. What will we do next? What will we do next? Type it in the chat box, please. What will we do next? Okay, nakapag-simplify na yung isa nating classmate. That's correct. Okay, let's cancel. Let's cancel. Correct. Let's cancel sine x. So therefore, we will end up with cosine x. Can you follow? Very good. One more. Another example pa. Game. Let's have another one. The letter B in our trigonometric function. So let's have sine x plus cosine cotangent x. Oy, game. Paano kaya to? Game. What do you think should be done here? Ay, kulang tayo ng given. Wait. I'll write it para mas maganda. Sin x plus cosine x times cotangent x. Okay. Game. Just like what I was telling you, ang cosine at sine laging may relasyon sa tangent at cotangent. What do you think should be done here? Type the answer in the chat box. May relasyon lagi ang sine at cosine kay tangent at cotangent. What should be done here? Quotient identities po muna ng cotangent x. Okay, let's see. By the way, just for you not to be confused, there are two terms here. We have here the first term, sine x, and the next term is the cosine x, cotangent x. And they are separated by addition. So this addition separates these two terms of the expression. Okay? Let's just make that clear. So, ang suggestion, quotient identity po ng cotangent x. Okay, let's do that. So, the cotangent is just the same with this quotient identity. So, this will become, ay, di po siya pwede. O, tingnan pa rin natin. Huwag kayong mawalan ng masyadong pag-asa. So, we have here cosine. Okay, mawalan ng pag-asa. Pag nakita nyo walang pwedeng cancelin, baka may pwedeng gawin. So we have here cosine x over sine x. Tapos times cosine x over 1 plus. Let me highlight the plus just to separate sine x. Ayan. So, ganito nangyari. Sir, how is that? We cannot cancel cosine. Hindi na po natin siya pwedeng i-cancel. Ay, paano naman po yon? Okay. Sir, nakaka-distract naman po yung background nyo. Wait, what's in my background? Let me just check. Sige. Alisin ko na lang yung background ko. Ayan, ganyan na lang. Para normal na lang. Okay. Minsan siguro nawawala ako nawawala ako sa background. Okay. Let's now continue. So, this time, tandaan, kapag naka-plus kayo, may posibilidad na pupunta kayo sa Pythagorean identity. Kaya nga may plus eh. Can you follow? So, therefore, papunta kayo sa Pythagorean identity. Okay? Now, let's do this. So, we will now have sine x plus n to n, d to d. So, we will have cosine x times cosine x. What's the answer? Cosine x times cosine x. What's the answer? Type the answer in the chat box, please. Okay, it becomes cosine squared x plus cosine squared x. Okay, over 1 times sine x, that's just sine x. Ayan, uy, papunta talaga tayo sa Pythagorean identities because your cosine now became squared. Okay, so what will we do next? The next thing to do is, okay, it becomes, so therefore, sine squared x plus cosine squared x all over sine x. Okay. So therefore, if you will remember, magpapakita man ako ibang example. If you can remember, adding fractions of different denominators. Halimbawa, meron tayong 2 plus 3 over x. Gawin pong similar fractions. That's correct. The fastest way, instead of doing the LC, dx times x times 2x plus 3, yung iba nalilito na sa process nun, the best thing to do here para hindi kayo malito is, of course, over 1 yon. Whatever is your, what will we do? What will we do with the denominator 1 to make it x? Anong gagawin sa denominator na to para maging x? Of course, let's multiply it by x. And if we do this here, we also do it in the numerator. So we will end up with 2x over x plus 3 over x. With this, dahil para yung denominator mo, we can now add our numerator. So 2x plus 3 na siya nun. Okay? That's how we do that process. Shortcut na yon. Now, looking at this given, we have sine. And of course, it's equal to 1. What should we do with 1 to make it sine x? Type the answer in the chat box, please. What will we do with 1 to make it sine x? Type it in the chat box. Multiply it by sine x. Very good. That's correct. So times sine x here. We do it in the numerator and in the denominator. Can you follow? So therefore, we will have this will become sine squared x. Can you follow? Over sine x plus, of course, this one, we will just copy it. Cosine squared x over sine x. And Jazel is correct. Very good. So therefore, all we have to do, therefore po, 1 over sine x is equal to cosecant x. Ay, kagaling. See, you're getting the hook of it. Very good. Now, let's continue the process. This will become, let's just combine sine squared x plus cosine squared x over their common denominator, which is sine x. And now that we have this, dito na natin gagamitin yung Pythagorean identity. And sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is just equal to, type your answer in the chat box. It's equal to 1 over sine x. Very good. And now, after that, we have 1 over sine x. We will find now, we will go back to the reciprocal identities at ano ang identity na equal kay 1 over sine x. Type it in the chat box. Exactly. That is cosecant x. Very good. That is cosecant x. And that is the final answer. Got it? Show a reaction if you understood that process. Good. Kaya pa? Don't worry. This is recorded. You can always go back to the process. Okay? Merong mga nalilito. Okay. You may just go back. Do you want another example or okay na yon? I want to hear from you. Do you want another example? Or okay na po yon? More. What about the rest? Especially those who are already who are already lost in the process. One more. Ready? Okay. Ready.
You are doing kasi other things eh. Look at this. Nanawin mo niya.
Game. Ready?
You should kasi you do that. You are not listening.
Kaya
What
pa?
do you do?
Okay. Game. Let's continue. So we have here, if it's sine and cosine, the only way here is dapat naka-fraction form sila to make it tangent and cotangent. However, there's no way for the cosine and the sine to go down in the denominator. So therefore, let's find another way. So there are two terms here. This is the first term, and this is the other term. And that is subtraction. Okay? So, as you have, if you can recall, the process a while ago, kapag ganito wala tayong ibang pwedeng gawin, one thing to solve this is to do the factoring. Okay? The first term has cosine x, and the second term also has cosine x. So let's factor out that. So we will have cosine x. Okay. So when we divide cosine x sine squared x by cosine x, what will be the answer? Type the answer in the chat box. Possible po ba na maging negative yung sagot? Why not? Wala nang problema doon. Let's see. Game. What will we do? Okay, so ito ay magiging yung mga classmates natin, automatic nilagay nila yung kanilang mga sagot. Okay, so this will become, kapag inalis natin to, kinancel, this will become sine squared x. Can you follow? Minus cosine x divided by cosine x. What's the answer? The answer is 1. Ayan. So, we factored out cosine x. Is factoring cosine x clear to you? Let me see. Maliwanag po ba yung pag-factor out ng cosine x na yon? Okay, finactor out po natin siya para lang siyang x times cosine, x sine squared x minus x. Ay, hindi naman x, y na lang para mas madaling tingnan. Y, para lang siyang ganito, sine squared x minus y. Ayan. Common factor si y. So, y times sine squared x minus 1. Parang ganun yung feeling. Okay? If cosine is equal to y. Ayan, parang ganun. Just for you to have clearer grasp of it. Now, you have here the factored form of cosine x, and we have here sine squared x minus 1. So kapag ganito, we have our sine squared and then the minus 1. Yeah, and we can make use of the Pythagorean identities. And which of these Pythagorean identities do you think can we use? Is it the 1, the 2, or the 3? Type your answer in the chat box. Is it the 1, the 2, or the 3? Type it in the chat box. Are you still okay? That's it. 1. Correct. So therefore, we will be using 1. The identity number 1, that's sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equal to 1. However, we need minus 1, sine minus 1. So therefore, what should we do here? What should we do here? Just like what we did a while ago with the cosecant, pwede tayong mag-transpose. So therefore, we transpose 1 to the other side to make it sine squared x minus 1. And then let's put this to the other side naman. And so this will become sine squared theta. You transpose 1, it will become minus 1 is equal to your cosine squared theta should also be transposed. So that will become negative cosine squared theta. Okay? Now, we can see here that sine squared theta minus 1 is just the same with negative cosine squared theta. Okay? Can you follow? Okay. So, your classmates are now sending their answers in the chat box. Correct. Very good. So, let's just substitute. We will have here cosine x times, change this with its value, and that's negative cosine squared x. Okay. Now that they are the same, let's multiply them. This will become cosine x times negative cosine squared x. That becomes negative cosine cubed x. And that is the single function for that given. Okay? Show me a reaction if you understood that process. Okay. Very good. Oh, kamusta na? Is that okay na or you want one more? At least we are having different examples here which you can explore about afterwards. My other, do you want, let me hear from you. Okay na ba yon or do you want one more? Okay, okay, there is a reply here. One more po. Oh, sige, one more. Ubusin na natin yung let's try these activities. Oh, okay, ready? Let me insert first our identities. So sabi ko sa inyo, you need to have a copy of these identities always with you. Okay, game. Finally. So we have here cotangent squared x over cosecant x minus 1. Okay, game. Oh, what do you think shall we do here? Anyone? Please suggest. What do you think? Okay, meron sa atin, may mga nag-enjoy na, yung iba nahihilo na. Okay, game. Sabi ko naman sa inyo, if you got the process, if you got the style of finding the right one, the right identity for it, mas makukuha niyo at mas ma-enjoy niyo siya. Okay, that's good. I'm happy to hear na meron nag-enjoy. But of course, nalulungkot din ako na meron pa rin nahihilo. But that's part of the learning process. That's part. Hindi naman lahat ng estudyante automatically magaling sa identities. Because identities require analysis of the given. Okay? Okay, some of our classmates are now suggesting Pythagorean po ng cotangent squared x. Okay. So, one is suggesting, let's change it po to Pythagorean. Yung isa naman, make cotangent po as cosine or sine. Sige, for these two learners, sige, try nyo muna yung process nyo. And let's also adapt their suggestions. Sige, gawin natin yung sinasuggest nila. Ito, gawin nating cotangent. This, let's find its Pythagorean identity. Sige nga, let's do that. So we have 1 plus cotangent squared x is equal to cosecant squared x. Okay. Kaya lang, we only need cotangent. We have plus 1, so let's transpose. So this will become cotangent squared x is equal to cosecant squared x minus 1. So ito yung ipapalit natin doon as suggested by our classmates. Okay, let's do that. So this will become cosecant squared x minus 1 over cosecant x minus 1. Okay, what else shall we do now? What else shall we do now? If quotient identity po yung sa taas, Then second Pythagorean po yung sa denominator. 0 po yung sagot. If quotient identity po yung sa taas, then yung second Pythagorean po yung sa denominator. Ah, okay. Okay, that's one thing that you need to be cautious about. Look, the denominator cannot be changed or interpreted as Pythagorean identity. Why? Kasi wala naman siyang squared doon. If it doesn't have a squared or if it does not have squared, you cannot change it to Pythagorean kasi dapat naka-squared lagi yung Pythagorean. Okay? So think note of that. Okay? So, therefore, okay, tandaan nyo yan ha, you cannot change that. Hindi siya pwedeng gawing Pythagorean kapag hindi naka-squared yung given mo. Okay? That's a requirement. Dapat squared siya lagi. Okay, let's continue muna this. Let's divide daw po. Okay, kasi ay sir, pareho po. As you have noticed, I hope you noticed, kung natatandaan nyo ba yung square, the difference of two squares, halimbawa, meron tayong x squared minus 1. This can be factored as x plus 1 minus 1. Okay. So therefore, let's factor out this. Let's factor out our numerator. So this will become in terms of cosecant. So we have cosecant x minus 1 and cosecant x plus 1. Okay. And then what happens next here is over cosecant x plus 1. Ayan. Now, can we cancel? Yes. So we can now, this is addition. This is subtraction. Okay. Can we cancel it now? Yes, of course. So when we cancel this, what's left here is cosecant x plus 1. But is that the final answer? Is that the final answer? What do you think? Is that the final answer? Okay. So, if that's the case, since hanggang dito na lang siya, we cannot do anything about it anymore. But I guess something is wrong with our given. Something must be missing kasi this cannot end like this only. Na hindi mo na pwedeng gawin squared pa to eh. Siguro, that this must be a typographical error. There should be squared here. So when there's squared here, you can just cancel it. This must be a correction. Sorry for that. Okay. So with that, after doing that, we can just simply cancel it. And this is just equal to 1. Okay? Kasi with the process a while ago, we ended with that one and we did the correct process naman. Okay, so let that be a correction for this given. Okay? Do you have other question or concern? Okay, yeah, hindi siya pwede. Hindi siya pwedeng ganon. Kasi dapat single function lang siya at wala na dapat plus. It should only be a single function. So that can't be. Okay? So let that be a correction kasi hindi siya kakayanin na ganun lang. Okay? Other question or concern?